Okay, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to another great episode of The Human Role. So, we are kicking off 2025 with another big episode. So, as I mentioned in the final episode last year, we have another amazing guest. He is a neurodiverse entrepreneur, the founder and CEO of MeSpace. Travis Hollman is here with us today. We're going to talk about in this episode neurodiversity again, but then also talk about Travis's company, MeSpace, and what that is doing to help neurodiverse professionals in the workplace, which is really important. So, if you guys remember, the middle of last season, we had Kay Sargent on from HOK, and we kind of got into the neurodiversity in the workplace. Travis has even more in-depth real life experience with this topic. And so really excited to have him on to kind of share how we can really just make sure we are advocating for our employees, especially as employers are trying to get people back into the office. So Travis has a solution. He's well known in the industry. And so thank you so much, Travis, for joining us today. Super excited to have you here as a guest to get into this topic. And we'd love to just have you, have the floor, talk about your background, talk about what led you to finding MeSpace for, my connections that may not be versed or familiar.
Name is Travis Hollman. I've got a locker company called Hollman Inc. That's kind of what we do for our main business. I've been dyslexic since I was a kid. Neurodiversity, I still can't spell it. Every time I've typed it so many times on my computer and I've not spelled it correctly once. It's just one of those things. But I've been dyslexic since I was a kid. It's something it's in your brain you don't get over. It's part of neurodiversity. I'm also ADHD. So neurodiversity is an interesting thing. Neurodiversity for your audience out there is basically dyslexia is the biggest piece of it. ADHD is a great piece of it, but it's autism, dysgraphia, dysphoria, all those things that make your brain function on the spectrum. We all know people that have these. It's a big part of society right now, but it's also some of the best people out there, and it's some of the worst people out there. Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Einstein and Bono and Richard Branson and all these people, these incredibly gifted people are neurodiverse. And then you've got, unfortunately for neurodiversity, you've got about 15% of people that have autism are employed. 40% of the people on the streets, the homeless people, are neurodiverse. So when I was a kid, growing up neurodiverse, third grade, couldn't read and write, do anything else, went to a private school for 1 year, got told, straight up I was too stupid to be there, flunked third grade. And that's how they handled it back there. I grew up, finally got a good teacher in high school that kind of set me straight, helped me out. But it was always just a struggle to get through everything. And all the people my age, I'm in my 50s, a lot of people can relate to that. They struggled through school, they struggled through things. But then when they got older, it was still a struggle going to work and getting things done because your brain just works a little bit differently. Technically, neurodiverse people have higher IQs than neurotypical people, but it's harder for some of us to explain or be realized because when you can't spell, especially in old days when I grew up with typewriters, so you can't spell, you had to retype everything over and over and over. Obviously, office work was very tough for us. So I grew up neurodiverse. When you're neurodiverse, a lot of times, especially dyslexia, your kids are neurodiverse. And in our locker company, we started doing about 10 years ago, we started doing a lot of lockers for pretty much Fortune 100 companies, this open layout floor plan. And we started doing these. So I started going to these offices, and they're doing these in the workforce turned out to be these big open offices. You've heard open floor plan. And I'm looking at this, and I go into JP Morgan, and they're putting all these people in this building. They took 4,000 people. They put 4,000 people in a 2,000 person building. They had two buildings sitting side by side, and they put these huge, long desks, maybe 30, 40 feet long, computers on both sides, people sitting side by side, down both corridors, 4,000 people worth of computers. And I remember walking in, this is about 5 years ago, and I went, oh my God, I couldn't do this. No one can do this. It's built like me. And at the same time, we were building some really cool lockers for the University of Alabama football, which we designed. I might help design that project. And it was all built to maximize your performance playing football. Everything was around you. You could sleep in the thing. You could do all these really cool things that would help your performance. And I remember thinking, I've got to build a space that maximizes performance for people like me. And we started the journey from there. And it's been quite a journey, but I've learned so much about neurodiverse people and how wonderful they are but how misunderstood they are. And the numbers are just staggering. 22% of the people in every office are neurodiverse. You might not know that, but those are the numbers. But 53% of Gen Zs are neurodiverse. They don't know exactly why. They think a lot of it's everything from our food to the way people are processing information online through TikTok. And so 70% of Gen Alpha, which are going to hit the work, that are being born now, are supposed to be neurodiverse. So this situation's coming for all HR people out there. And how do we deal with these people, and what do we put them in? What accommodations do they need? And how do we maximize their potential? And also, how do we realize their greatness? Because there's some incredibly wonderful people out there that haven't worked because they can't interview. You need some special training with HR to help them out. You need special spaces. That's what we created with MeSpace. You might need AI to help them out. There's so many things you can do, but it's all starting to roll this direction.
Yeah, so that's great details and explanations on just like understanding in general, neurodiversity. Because for me, for example, I just came across the term a couple years ago, right? And then that's how I got introduced to K Sargent. And so I want to say, and I've talked about it a lot in past episodes, is that more so, I feel like people are open now to talk about what they're struggling with, right? When I was younger, that wasn't necessarily, the thing to do. Usually just didn't talk. Now there's a lot of talking about it. So it's great to see. But when you're in like an HR stance, you do need to figure out what your population needs. Everyone is so different. And so like even like an open desk format, like if your back is to someone, could potentially be uncomfortable to somebody. And even, for me, sometimes I like the little phone booths now, because I could just go, my little area and talk if needed. So that helps understand like the background of neurodiversity, why it really is important to populations, to not just the workplace, but society in general, because everyone has their own wants and needs. And then someone may not even know how to communicate that, I guess you can say. They may not know how to properly say what they really need. So it really is on, like, even from a workplace stance, to try to figure out each person individually. And I know that is hard with people being at home. A lot of times we don't get that in-person interaction 24/7, but just from, HR out there, I would just say, like, really reach out to your population and really understand who your people are. If someone is struggling, you don't necessarily have to do a write-up, right? You just need to talk to them to figure out what is going on. And maybe it is just a simple changing of a seat. And maybe it is just something of, hey, look, they need maybe an extra break. They need to go somewhere else, right? Because that helps us understand the population. I will say though, Travis, okay, I'm glad you helped Alabama, but I'm an Auburn War Eagle. So I just like I was like, okay, here we go, rivalries here. So.
We did Auburn too.
Okay, good. We're usually like the second-hand person out there. So, but that's great to talk about as, we understand neurodiversity. However, let's get into from an employee stance. So any employees out there listening in, if you're nervous about getting back into the office, or if you're on a hybrid schedule, they may be wondering how, MeSpace and your designs can even help them, how it can help their productivity, how it can maybe help them be more comfortable in the office. So can you give some details on how, your spaces really help kind of drive that for neurodiverse individuals?
What's really interesting is, so we invented this space, and when we did it, it's been a 3-year process. And I didn't even think of the neurodiverse piece of it until I was up. It was only about basically a year ago at Christmas. And already had the space designed, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, and people are just like, what, explain to me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm really trying to unlock potential in everybody. And they're like, okay, how are you going to do that? I'm explaining. And finally, I'm like, no, I'm really trying to help people that would be scared to death of going to that open workspace. If you go now, they're doing these little areas and whatever, but neurodiverse people are a little bit different. So we really focused on autism, because autism is the extreme piece of neurodiverse when it comes to anything from an HR perspective or a spot where they need to feel safe. Anything in the office is about feeling safe. There's 2 types of people in neurodiversity. There's hypersensitive, which means anything around them distracts them. You walk in, all of a sudden it's your first day, and you sit down with 75, 80 people in a room, and you've got your back towards the stairs. People are walking behind you all the time, and you've got all this movement around you. And you can tell these people, because they'll always be headphones on, because they're trying to get in their space. And you'll see people, I've seen it, where they're putting up little cardboard and they're trying to trying to do all they can to cocoon themselves so they don't get distracted and they can do their work. And it's almost impossible with the current designs. So then what they've done with the other designs, they've gone in and said, okay, here's a little spot where you can go sit for a few minutes or a phone booth. And it's great, but they need this assistance all the time. It's not a, hey, go in a phone booth for 10 minutes, get some work done, and then go back out and sit with the open floor plan. It just doesn't work for them. And the hypersensitive are the extreme on the one side where any movement, any interaction hurts them. Hypo means that they have to have a lot of movement. Those are the people that would be great out in space. But it's a very small percentage of the neurodiverse. And that's for people that have to have all this movement all the time, or else they can't work. But the hyper is where most of the focus is. The hypo we've got solved already with the open floor plan. So the hypersensitive people, so we started working on it. They want to be, have their back against the wall is a big thing. Neurodiverse people, there's a lot of different sensitivity. We built a system for basically that you can work in all day. It's got a stand up, sit down desk. Some people want to stand up, sit down. Some people, by the way, that are neurodiverse always have to be moving. So you've got that aspect, and they're sitting down, stand up, sitting down. Then we've got on the desk, we've got tactile surfaces. The top of the desk is really a ultra smooth surface. Underneath the desk, there is a tactile surface that they can rub on. We've got tactile walls that they can rub up and down, and all sorts of different interior materials that they can feel and touch, because a lot of them have sensitivity to touch. Then we went to RGB lighting, because take Bono, for example, the singer, everybody looks at him and he's got the rose-colored glasses, whatever, he's light sensitive. He's got a light sensitivity, which is very common for neurodiverse people, especially in the autism spectrum. So they can control their lighting. Fluorescent light in particular really bothers. The little sounds and stuff from fluorescent light also bother neurodiverse people, it seems to. We've got biophilia in there. Biophilia is a big thing. That was something that we added. It's a real sensitive topic for neurodiverse people, and actually makes them calm down in the space. And then we've got a glass so you can see out into the space. And it's a ghost glass. If you don't want anybody to see and you press a button, it goes dark on you. Or you press the button if you want to see movement. Then the most important thing we've got a door that rolls around you. And by doing that, what we've done is we've created, everybody's on this quote, unquote spectrum differently. And we've created a space where they can be part of society by having the door open, have the door halfway closed or all the way closed. Depending on how they're feeling, they can control their environment. Also, this thing, the phone booths are absolute silence. We didn't build it that way. We have the same basically decibel reach as if you have it all the way closed as you would in a closed office, where you can still hear movement, hear stuff outside. So we've created this entire thing, basically the Swiss Army knife of workspaces. Obviously, we're still taking lots of suggestions on how to do it better. I've got scientists coming on board to work with us to really work on the mental health science of the whole thing. We want to become leaders in the space on how to basically make a place that you feel happy and safe and increase productivity. But the productivity increase for a neurodiverse person, we don't have the statistics, but it's over 50% of a productivity increase. And for neurotypical people that aren't neurodiverse, it's at 23%. We do have that number.
Yeah, that's great. Lots of cool things that you were just mentioning that I had not even thought about. Even as simple like standing up, sitting down desks, right? Because I know a lot of people kind of like that movement. And you are correct, where some people do have to have that constant movement. So I think from like an employee stance, that really solves every single thing they could potentially be experiencing. And then of course, always room for improvement, right? So you're even kind of building and adding to that, which is great. Which also leads me to thinking about the employer experience, because I'm thinking of like what potential challenges they could face if like your office is not even fit for not even one of these things, right? And then, you're trying to get people back into the office. So have you come across any of those challenges? And then maybe give some suggestions on even like small changes. So if you can't get budgets approved to do a whole mass change of office space, what could potentially be like some small changes that can be implemented to help your neurodiverse employees?
What neurodiverse people are really good at is critical thinking. That's why they can take complex situations and make them simple. 55% of small business owners are neurodiverse. 45% of Fortune 500 CEOs are neurodiverse. So these are people you really want in your organization. So to get them in, you need a space that they can excel at. And that's what we're providing. But if you can't do something like we're providing, they do need private space. You can do offices, they have these wraparound couches. Maybe they can go sit there for a while, but they're going to need space where they feel secure and safe to be able to do their work. If not, you're not going to get good work out of them. Or, they'll work till 8 o'clock at night and they sit there till 5 and don't get anything done because they're neurodiverse. And then from 5 to 8, when everybody's gone, that's where they get all their work done. The thing about especially autism stuff, you're talking about getting people back to work. By giving them a space where they're productive and want to come back, that's key to getting it back. There are a lot of things out there. There's Title II out there. There's some grants and stuff businesses can get to hire and accommodate these people. There's a lot of different ways to get this done. But if I was running a company in the HR department, I would have a focus on getting some training on how to hire and how to interview these people, because they don't interview very well, a lot of them. But you have to look for these people. You have to know their brilliance, trust in their brilliance. They are brilliant. And you've got to get some training from HR on how to find them, how to hire them, and then how to deal with them when they're there. And MeSpace is just an accommodation. But it's not any more important than the management training that the HR people are going to need to see them, to make them feel part of society, and to get them in. MeSpaces are a place we can put them. And that's why we've got these open doors and the glass and everything else, because we don't want to isolate them in a corner somewhere. We want them to be part of the space. It's amazing that when you get there, if they're sitting on a couch and someone's in their same room and they never say a word to them, they're happier than heck just to be part of it. They are so productive and the work is so good. JP Morgan estimates the employees hired each role through its neurodiversity program are 90% more effective than the non-neurodiverse. 90%. They're just wonderful people that need accommodations and need a way to get in and need training for the managers.
I think it was almost really simple, just like they do need their own space and really understanding what that space is for each person versus looking at it as a potential burden, right? It's really just understanding that. And then as your stats have proven, you're going to get great work productivity out of them, right? So that should automatically be a no-brainer. It's just making sure you have the proper accommodations to fit their needs. And then once you get them their accommodations, I'm sure they're fine, right? You're just able to kind of, get through the day and work as normal, right? Just like how in certain offices, other people may prefer to have a standing desk, may prefer to sit down, may prefer to not be in a cubicle, right? It's almost the same thing from like an accommodation stance and that aspect. So really loved everything that you explained and wanted to now kind of take a little bit of a pivot and talk about the book you're going to be featured in with Kay Sargent. She is having a book that is releasing soon. It's Designing Neuro-Inclusive Workplaces. So Travis obviously is the perfect person to be featured for that. But then also really anything additional from MeSpace that you want to kind of just get out there for, everyone in my network that is working for a company, running a company, just because understanding your pods, the different complexities that each one, could have for their employees. I do know that there are a lot of companies trying to get people back into the office. So I really want to get the word out about this because even I feel like someone who may not potentially think that they are neurodiverse, we are definitely used to being home, right? Even myself included, I'm used to being home. So even being back around just the office, chaos, noise, or whatever. It's like, oh, geez, I'm used to being in my little desk at home, and now I got to be around people. I got to talk to people. People are coming to my door. It's like, oh my goodness. So that within itself is a lot to even take in. So anything additional that you want to share about MeSpace, please have the floor. But then also any insight you can give about, Kay's book that is coming out. We know when it's coming out, kind of like the details on that. I'd love to kind of like share that with my network as well.
First of all, Kay's fantastic. She does work with us. It was funny with her when I started this. And I sent this to her and I said, I got my first meeting with Kay about February last year. And I said, Kay, let's go through it. And she said, I've seen this. I've seen these pods. I'm like, finally I stopped. I said, Kay, you didn't read or go through our literature, did you? And she's like, no. I'm like, we're not a pod system or we're not, this phone booth thing. And so we went through it. And afterwards she said, hey, can I join your team? Can I help you guys? But Kay's book, so Kay's now got a book. She's asked me to be in it, and I'm not a big part of it, but I'm, basically it's just more about my story and about growing up and, and the struggle that it was and the technology base that's coming, that's going to allow people like me to accelerate. But so Kay's book's coming out. Everybody that's in the space should go read it. I was at a convention with her, and the question on neurodiversity was, everybody know what that means? And it's all designers. Everybody puts their hand up. Anybody been asked to design for it? Everybody puts their hand up. Does anybody know how to design for it? Not a hand goes up. So that's how new we are in this space. We're all just figuring out together. It's a new topic, but with 70% of Gen Alphas coming up neurodiverse, it's going to be something that's going to come across and be a very big part of the future workforce and needs to be looked at real seriously at this point in time.
Yeah, agreed. And so my last question to you, I wanted to pick your brain on kind of like how you see the future of neurodiverse design. So you kind of already hit on that too. So AI, of course, I've had plenty of episodes on artificial intelligence. However, I did not realize that could even help with this side of the house, right? So what you were kind of explaining, and I'm not quite sure why that didn't dawn on me, but it kind of clicked as you were going through. So AI is also going to be a biggie here. And then even when you were talking about designers not knowing how to design for it, this is why you're going to be at the forefront leading that, right? Because you have the real life examples to help them train on how to properly design for that. So I feel like that's a good future aspect of things. Am I kind of on the right side of that?
And we're going to help everybody learn how to design, but we also want to be a thought leader out there, our company. That's where we're hiring scientists and everything else, to how do we make people feel, sounds really silly, happy at work. And if I can make an autistic person feel happy and want to go to work and feel like they're part of greatness at work, and they feel wanted and safe and they want to go in. How do you get people back to work? You give them a space that they want to get back and they feel very productive coming in. Right now, you take a person that's been at home, you say, come back to work, jump in this office with 80 other people in the room on a flat desk, and now you try to get your work done and you've been sitting at home for 3 years. That's a hard sell. You give them a space and say, listen, come in to this office. Even neurotypical people are going to be 23% more effective in the office. In 32-hour, 40, say you work in the office 4 days, you're going to get about 42 hours of work done inside of a MeSpace, where you'd only get 32 hours normal. And they can come in and be ultra productive and see people, but also have their own private space. That's a win. So by giving them a private space where they can work and giving them the needs, the tools to be productive and to really unlock their potential, that's where it's going. I mean, we've got to figure this stuff out. We've got a 40-hour work week right now, 5 days a week. People probably don't know, but it used to be 6 days a week, 10-hour days back in about 1900, right? Henry Ford came in, he invented the assembly line, and he's actually the guy that took it down to this 5-day work week. He didn't take the profits. The people came in, we came in with all the computer revolution in the 90s. They thought it was going to go to 3-day work week. That didn't happen because the computer people, everybody else took the profits and kept everybody working the 40-hour work week. Now with AI and everything coming, we've got to figure out how to get everybody productive, from the neurodiverse in the workspaces, because we're always looking for employees, to the neurotypical people, because the Gen Alpha right now that's being born, they think we'll have to work 67 years. So if you're going to work 67 years, how many days a week and how many hours a day can you work for 67 years straight? And we're going to have to become more productive and get different types of people in. So hiring neurodiverse is a big part of it. Productivity increases are a big part of it. AI is going to be a big part of it. But if I was running HR, these are all the things I'd be looking at, because at some point in time, I think it's going to crack and we're going to get down that 40 work week. And how do companies do that without increasing productivity? Because they don't want to give up their profits. But all these things are coming right now. So my hope is that with AI coming, with MeSpace coming, with us being able to look at neurodiverse people and look at different people that have kind of been pushed out of society a little bit sometimes, and bring these people in the fold that have the skill level. They might not have a skill level for school where they can spell very well and they can read very well, but those things aren't needed as much now in society as they were back when I was young. And we have an opportunity now to make that quantum leap to a better life for everybody, a smaller work week, by increasing productivity, hiring different people, getting the autistic people in here that are 90% more effective and do 90% more work than a non-autistic people. But building your HR department, your company with different types of people is going to be extremely important for the future, because if they're going to work 67 years, we got to figure out what we're going to demand out of our employees for 67 years in a row. And I hope it's not 40 hours a day, 5-day work week for 67 years.
Yeah.
Plus, think of all this shopping we could do with that extra day. My wife would love it.
Yeah. I was going to say kudos. Shout out to Travis, because we definitely want to make sure we can get to lower less days. So everyone out there, we already have people working on that, but no guarantees, right? But we're trying.
It has to happen.
Well, I feel like we need to have another follow-up conversation of this some months now, or a year from now, to kind of see where we're at with this. But thank you so much, Travis. This is great insight. To everyone out there, please reach out to Travis if you have any more additional questions. Go to MeSpace, see what they're doing out there. Their website will be listed here on this video. And then, hopefully you can get that started in your business, in your workplace, or just like start implementing the small changes, right? So we have experts out there that kind of know what's going on. So make sure you get connected with him, look through, his videos, and he has, good media space too. So you'll be able to kind of click through where he's been featured on as well. And then when his book feature comes out, I'll definitely make sure I share that with everyone. But thank you so much, Travis, for joining. Really appreciate all of your insight here. Definitely I'm going to be reaching out for some future episodes, some more to come with there. But to everyone out there, I will have another great episode in a couple of weeks. So we'll see you all soon.